I'd like to highlight the need for native forest logging in Australia to be better regulated and subject to national environmental laws. The exemption of regional forestry agreements from national environmental laws is driving species towards extinction. This government has an opportunity this week to do a deal with the Senate crossbench and close the loophole and help impacted communities through the transition. It makes no sense to set up an environmental regulator only to stop it looking into native forest logging. I'm calling on the government to set up an EPA with integrity, with independence, and give it what it needs to actually protect our environment. The ability to assess all native forest logging in Australia. I think most Australians would be horrified that we have native forests being logged without oversight from our national environmental laws. We know that this has a biodiversity and a climate impact. The climate impact of ending native forest logging in Victoria this year will be the equivalent of taking 700,000 cars off the road. Yet we know in Victoria that there are pushes to continue native forest logging under the guise of other names. And we need to ensure that whatever you want to call it, it needs to be assessed by our environmental laws. Ending native forest logging in Tasmania would be the equivalent of taking 1.1 million cars off the road every year. Why are we not acting on this, given that we're in a biodiversity and climate crisis? Why are we not acting, given we know that this is a loss-making industry? It's not profitable. Taxpayers are having to prop up industries in the states that still have large-scale native forest logging. 90% of all wood from native forest logging goes to wood chips, paper pulp and box liners. We're talking about a low-value, high-volume commodity that we are turning incredible native forests into. This is frankly ridiculous that in 2024 we're not seeing leadership from a government that has claimed all sorts of things. No new extinctions, nature positive, green Wall Street, all of these things. What they aren't willing to do, though, is actually start to address the root cause of the biodiversity crisis here in Australia. As I said, the forestry industry in New South Wales and Tasmania is losing money. The Victorians wisened up and decided that they could actually transition out of it. In Tasmania, total losses are above $1.5 billion since regional forest agreements were signed 20 years ago. You could have a stadium and some change for that, but I'm sure there's a lot more things that Tasmanians would want that money to be going towards. The Blueprint Institute found that if we end native forest logging on the north coast of New South Wales, there will be an economic windfall of $294 million between now and 2040. And that's just in northern New South Wales. We've got an opportunity to stop losing money by cutting down our native forests and to benefit from the economic windfall of protecting them. This doesn't have to be an either-or when it comes to good regional jobs. With a little bit of imagination and with some investment, there can be transition plans for those affected. There can be jobs in specialist firefighting, in all sorts of areas, and of course the opportunity when it comes to tourism and carbon storage. There is a clear need to work with communities impacted by the transition. It's totally inevitable that it'll get to a point where Australians say, given what we're seeing when it comes to climate change, given what we're seeing when it comes to biodiversity loss, this is untenable. And if the major parties don't want to do it, I think Australians will deliver a parliament that will force you to do it. And so I'd urge you to get ahead of it, actually tackle this problem. And I think it's now irresponsible to wait any longer. We have an opportunity as a Senate. We have a government that's saying all the right things, and a crossbench that is simply saying, just do what you've committed to. Just actually front up and do what you've told Australians that you're going to do. Follow through with it to protect the people and places that we love.